Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us this evening. All right, so I see some Yin Yin is saying hi. Hi, everyone. So that means you guys can hear me. That's great. Hello. So yeah, thank you for joining us and for spending your Thursday evening or afternoon with us. Now, we're very excited to get the show going. But just a little bit of introduction for this webinar. Okay, so this webinar is organized by the Society of Marine Mammalogy, and it is organized to highlight matters of diversity, inclusion, and equity, or DEI, within the society. The Ad Hoc Diversity and Inclusion Committee are organizing 4 DEI-related webinars. So the first one was the Equity in Internship, which happens sometime early this year. And this is the second one. There'll be another 2 series of webinars relating to DEI matters before the end of the year. Now, this particular webinar will focus on research in Asia and also issues around conducting marine mammal science in marine mammals research in low-income country. If you notice from our webinar title, it is overcoming challenges in the lands of dragons and mermaids. And these will be the stories of our struggles, of the triumphs, on marine mammal science and conservation in diverse Asia. Now, 4 Asian researchers will present aspects of their research and how they achieve success working with limited resources, but with an abundance of regional encouragement and camaraderie. The speakers will be joined by several other researchers for a panel discussion, which will be moderated by Dr. Lindsay Porter and also myself. So the panel discussion will also focus on the diversity of people, cultures, and disciplines of marine mammal work in Asia. So for anyone who has questions, you can drop it onto the Zoom chat box. If you are joining us from Facebook, you can also drop your questions on Facebook. We will make sure that we will get to your questions. Anonymous questions or comments can be posted. Okay, Eric has shared a form, a Google form, where you can drop your questions anonymously. Now, to start the ball rolling, okay, we will have the first speaker, Jo Maria Aceves. She likes to be called Jom. Her talk will be titled Balancing the Banca, Overcoming Challenges in Marine Mammal Research in the Philippines. Now, Jom is a senior museum researcher at the Zoology Division of the National Museum of the Philippines. She is also the founder and the principal investigator of a non-profit organization called Balena.org, with a mission to support the conservation of whales and dolphins and their natural habitats in the Philippines through research, education, and capacity building. The floor is yours, Jom.
Thank you. I just started sharing my screen. Can everybody see it?
Yes, I can see it on my side.
All right. Thank you so much. Hold on, just let me. All right. Good evening, everyone. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. For those in other time zones, a very early morning to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It is a pleasure to be invited to be part of this webinar. And I thank Dr. Carly and Dr. Eric Archer from the Society for Marine Mammalogy for inviting me to be one of the speakers. And of course, a big thank you for all the organizers for making this happen. I would like to share with you today some of my insights on problems and solutions of conducting marine mammal research in the Philippines. Most of what I'll be sharing with you today is from my own experiences, but I've also incorporated challenges shared by my friends and colleagues here in the country. As a marine mammal researcher, we do face many challenges. Some are not unique to our field and are in fact common challenges that all Filipino researchers have to face. I attempted to break it down into 5: nature of the species, fieldwork conditions, limited funding, socio-political environment, and colonial science and colonial mentality. So first, nature of the species, I mean, what it means, like basically what species you're working on. So like for whales, dolphins, dugongs, they are all marine mammals, of course, and they're very well adapted to the vast marine ecosystem. They are excellent swimmers. They can hold their breath underwater, and some species can dive a kilometer deep and can stay down there for over an hour. So if you consider that alone, you may see a blow from a whale 500 meters away from you. And no matter how fast your boat can go, if the whale decides to dive deep and swim away from you, you probably won't see that animal again. But if you're lucky and it only swims away for about a kilometer and resurfaces after about 15 minutes, you probably have a chance of getting close. And that's just the start of maybe an hour or so of chasing the whale. There are also those species that I guess you can call cryptic, those animals who are just a little bit shy or very mysterious. Those that don't like breaching or bow riding, making them a lot more difficult to see, unless you have these perfect glassy sea conditions. But then you have beaked whales. These animals may be big, measuring about 5 to 6 meters long, but they are not exactly the kind of cetacean that likes to swim actively on the surface, at least here in the Philippines. I have only seen a live beaked whale once, and it was for a brief encounter of about 5 to 10 minutes, enough time just to be able to get a couple of photographs, and that was it. So like many marine animals, whales and dolphins don't always cooperate with humans. You might think humpback whales and blue whales, they are so big. They must be easy to see, right? But there are so many factors to consider when studying these animals. First, you must know where to find them and where, when, and where there is the highest chance that they will be there. And after that, everything else is basically up to you and your team and the weather. So seasonality is definitely a factor to consider. Some species are migratory, so you may only have a small window of opportunity every year to be able to see them. The abundance or rarity of the species is also a factor. You may have a small population of critically endangered species like the Irrawaddy dolphins in Iloilo-Guimaras Straits. You can spend hours, several days a month, looking for them and won't see a single animal. You'll be extremely lucky to see one even surface long enough for you to be able to take a photograph of its dorsal fin. And there are species that are, the population is so small, it will be very difficult to find them. Then you also have those that are rare or uncommon, that it might take you years to be able to find them. Or you could be one of those extremely lucky people who go out once on a fine day and encounter such a species like a killer whale in the Philippines. So searching for whales and dolphins takes a lot of background research and groundwork before you can actually start a research project. But sometimes you can get lucky and work on a species or area where baseline studies have already been done, or locals living in the area will tell you marine mammals are there and when you can see them. Fieldwork challenges. Most of us work in fairly remote locations with very basic infrastructure, where the first big challenge is getting to the field site. For us, travel challenges include a 22-hour bus ride plus another 4 hours by van, then a 4-hour boat ride across open seas. Weather and sea conditions are huge factors that determine when you will arrive at your field site. On land, you have landslides that could delay your travel, while sea travel is heavily dependent on good sea conditions. And since there are no regular vessels or ships or ferries that cross to and from the islands, we have to hire a boat that is big enough to be able to cross. And more recently, with new restrictions with our marina, only vessels that they allow are allowed to cross with people. Weather conditions can be volatile. It can become dangerous very quickly. Traveling by sea and going out to sea every single day, the safety of the team is always in mind. In the field, there is usually very basic infrastructures and facilities available. There are no markets, no groceries, no restaurants, no bars, which for many people is actually perfect. But it isn't for everyone, and some limitations such as lack of 24-hour electricity or no hot showers or flushing toilets could be an issue. In terms of work, electricity and mobile or internet reception are the biggest challenges. This could become a problem in terms of ability to charge your equipment or work on your data. In summary, when in the field, we do not live in the comfort of our homes and we do not work in the luxury of a normal office. But again, for many, I would say, that's actually the fun part of what we do. Having limited or no funding for marine mammal research precludes many other challenges. We don't have our own boat. We rent local outrigger boats, which is a big challenge, given the requirements that we need to be able to follow the methods required for our research. Outrigger boats have loud motors. They don't have a reverse or a neutral. Since the boats we use are used for fishing, it isn't exactly the most comfortable boat to be in when you have 4 or 5 people on the boat. Taking photographs can be a challenge. And most of the time, it's a balancing act. Holding a heavy DSLR with a 400mm lens, trying to take a photo of a whale in Beaufort 3 conditions is a skill. Deploying a hydrophone could be tricky, and even standing to be able to see whales is something that you need to get used to. Needless to say, we don't have full-time staff. Or paid staff, no field office of our own. We work with limited and even sometimes borrowed equipment. The socio-political complexity around conservation issues in the country can be daunting. Each municipality or town or region can have different political environments. Most of us have to tread carefully when doing our work and promoting our advocacy of protecting the environment, because it may be against interests of people in power. Even the state of national politics can affect how we do our work. I have had my share of harassment from people in power. I've had someone ask me for a donation, a huge one, in thousands of euros to be exact, in exchange for being able to work in an area. I know people who were caught in between conflicts with the military and insurgents while they were in the field. So it isn't always fun and easy working in the field in the Philippines. In general, marine mammal research is not the priority of our government. There is very little, if there is any at all, funding to do research on marine mammals. And to make things worse, there is also an apparent disconnect between development and conservation, wherein the effects of activities such as mining or infrastructure development on marine mammals and their habitats are not considered. This next one is sometimes not easy to talk about. It makes some people uncomfortable. So colonial science and colonial mentality. Colonial science, also referred to as parachute science. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of this by now. Thanks to Asha, the boss. If you haven't heard of this, then you should look it up, or better yet, look up Asha. So yes, colonial science is real. It has been happening in the Philippines for decades, even centuries. I have experienced it. Many of my friends and colleagues have experienced it, and I'm pretty sure many of our colleagues and friends all over Southeast Asia and Asia have experienced it too. But I'd like to take it a bit further by talking how it connects to colonial mentality. So first, what is parachute science? So as Asha defines it, it's the conservation model where researchers from the developed world come to countries like mine, do research and leave without any investment in human capacity or infrastructure. She continues on saying it creates a dependency on external expertise and cripples local conservation efforts. The work is driven by the outsider's assumptions, motives, and personal needs, leading to an unfavorable power imbalance between those from outside and those on the ground. What then is colonial mentality? Growing up in the Philippines, especially when I was a teenager, I often heard the phrase colonial mentality. But back then it was used in a very different context. At least I was aware of it being used in a very different context. So by definition, it is a form of internalized oppression that conditions colonized people to believe that their ethnic or cultural identity is inferior to Western culture or whiteness. Therefore, they live their lives striving to be Westernized and learning to hate their indigenous roots. Of course, there are so many other definitions of this, but I'd like to work on this one by Alicia Soler. And she also quotes another one that extends it further by saying it involves uncritical rejection of anything Filipino and uncritical preference for anything American. But in this context, it applies to not just anything American, but it could be European or Australian or anything foreign. I know I don't have the time to talk about this and debate with people about this right now. So how is this a challenge in research? And I say this as research or science in general. We have often encountered biases against Filipino researchers, not just from foreigners, but from fellow Filipinos. It is not a comfortable or easy topic to talk about, but I think more and more people are talking about it, which is good. I think the more we recognize that it is happening, the more we can start the conversation on how to deal with it. The most common example of this is often just shrugged off by most as something harmless. It is when, for example, we go to a local government office to do our usual courtesy call to introduce ourselves and our project, and sometimes to get permission to work in their locality. And although in general, Filipinos being very hospitable, we are welcomed with open arms and coffee and merienda or snacks in Filipino. We still have to go through the normal protocols when we are starting a project or plan to take samples from specimens or even getting a research permit, which is fine. That is the law, that is the protocol. But here comes a foreign researcher who comes in, who doesn't speak an ounce of our language and gets welcomed too with open arms, coffee and merienda, maybe with a little bit extra. But at the end of the day, gets all the necessary permissions and permits without going through the normal process. Basically getting a shortcut simply for being white. Even worse is when a foreign researcher comes in and does their research, takes samples and leaves without getting any permit of any kind, and does it without any trouble. Personally, I have encountered more than once that things I have said were ignored or bypassed over something that a foreign researcher said, even when if they did their research. I actually studied that species in the Philippines for almost 2 decades, while that other researcher has only seen that animal in a different country. So why is this bad? Because it discredits local expertise. It undermines the hard work that local researchers have done and favors the other. This would translate to funding going to the foreign researcher organization because there is this notion or assumption that they are better because they are not Filipino or they studied overseas. So in a field where competition for funding is already stiff or high, this doesn't make it any easier. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it may also mean locals listen to advice on how to go about something that is not adapted or suited to our local environment. And lastly, and probably not as big as a challenge as the previous that I've mentioned, there are those who think that going on boats and doing surveys is not real science. And this is linked to most people thinking that whale watching is the same as whale surveys. I don't know if this happens in other countries like Malaysia, Myanmar, or Thailand, but believe me, this happens in the Philippines a lot. And don't get me wrong, I understand how a non-biologist or someone not in the field of science or research would think whale watching and whale survey means the same thing. But what is problematic, I would say, is when a fellow researcher or another person in a different field in science believes it is so. Similarly, I believe this is a challenge because until our research colleagues or colleagues in the other sciences recognize that marine mammal science is important and is real science, this field will not flourish or progress in our country. Because if I can convince you, a fellow scientist, that what I do is science, how can I expect a local politician or a government official to listen to what I am saying when I'm talking about the detrimental effects of dredging to a small isolated population of critically endangered dolphins? The current challenges is, of course, pandemic. The pandemic has affected us all, some more than most. And for us, it was more on difficulty in getting access to a survey vessel. And of course, the quarantine and travel restrictions added another complex layer of challenges to getting in the field. So how did we overcome these challenges? How can you overcome these challenges? Do your research, read up on the species, try to find out what has been done in the area, and talk to locals. Starting the humpback whale project in the Babuyan Marine Corridor wasn't easy because virtually nothing was known about them in the Philippines prior to 1999, at least among scientists. And it wasn't until we have actually talked with the locals on the islands, after we've talked to fishermen, that we were able to find them. Be innovative in finding ways how to conduct research given what is available locally. Find cost-effective ways in doing things, and partner with local groups and other agencies. Be adaptive. So we developed our own protocols in data gathering, data saving, equipment maintenance. We developed protocols for safety and in case of emergencies. And I think more importantly, we enjoyed what we have and where we were. Besides, who gets to have an office with a view, or who gets to have a picnic on a beautiful beach every lunchtime and snorkel? Be creative in fundraising. Through our volunteer program, we have managed to conduct our annual humpback whale survey in the Babuyan Marine Corridor and in the Bohol Sea. Our Adopt a Whale program has not only supported our humpback whale research, but has helped us in raising awareness about humpback whales in the Babuyan Marine Corridor. We also developed various merchandise with the help of artist friends and volunteers. We partnered with local organizations and communities to be able to conduct livelihood supplemental projects and other joint conservation initiatives. In navigating through the socio-political complexities, it's a bit more tricky. Know the law and the protocols and follow them. Be firm and polite when dealing with people in power. Be proactive, be open and get involved in discussions about issues. Have a firm and clear advocacy, partner with other advocacy groups and help each other. For colonial science and colonial mentality, I think it's even more tricky and quite difficult to deal with most of the time. But I think if we speak up and talk and share about our work, our accomplishments, others will know that there is a lot of marine mammal research being done in the country. Research being done by locals, that we have local expertise, and in many ways, we can do things or have done things that no one else has. Take the opportunity to talk about your work, to showcase all the good things, all the science that is being done in our country, and lead when you can. Step up and believe that you don't have to be educated in the US or abroad to be able to do good science, and influence others. So share your work, not just with colleagues, but with friends and family, and let them know all the work that is being done, all the work that still needs to be done, and what they can do to help. With all these challenges, there are also a lot of opportunities. And for us, we get inquiries from people from around the world, all over the country, from different backgrounds, asking how they can volunteer and help us. And there are also many opportunities for collaborations, local and international. And of course, having a network in Asia and Southeast Asia definitely helps. I think we are fortunate that many of whom are participating in this webinar today, are kind and amazing people who are always willing to help a friend and a colleague. Whether it be in giving advice about what to do when there's a live stranding of short-fin pilot whales, or help figure out what caused the death of a young Irrawaddy dolphin, or even to help identify a beaked whale. I think there is no shortage of expertise in our region. We have highly qualified and experienced people in our region, and emphasis on the experience and working in our region, because I believe that is very important. The sociocultural and political context we all work in is quite different from the US or Australia or Europe. And knowing how to navigate through those is crucial. But it goes without saying that collaboration is good and important. Collaboration with scientists and researchers from countries who know more about the species we are working on, or where a specific technology is available and they have experience in, is particularly valuable. True collaborations make great successful projects that help conserve and protect marine mammals. For those who are asking how you can help by supporting us through donations, buying our merchandise, funding a project or activity. You can also support our scholarship program. You can adopt a humpback whale from us and support our humpback whale research project. And of course, you can volunteer with us. And trust me, this is something you have never experienced before. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Agyamanak, daghang salamat.
Thank you, Jom, for that
very inspiring.
Yeah, very inspiring. I'm very sorry to hear about being harassed by the people in power. I believe most of us here have experienced that one way or another. So there are several questions specific for the Philippines, but we will entertain questions at the end of this session where everyone, the speakers as well as the panel, will be able to speak. Okay, so we go to our next speaker, Win Tae. who will be giving his talk on diving into marine mammal conservation in Myanmar, opportunities, growths, and challenges. Now, Win is a co-founder of the Myanmar Coastal Conservation Lab, MMCL, a local youth-based organization. As a conservation practitioner, researcher, and trainer, Win is eager to promote interdisciplinary, inclusive, and innovative solutions for conservation and management in Myanmar. Win and his collaborators were the winners of the SMM 2019, I believe, conference in Barcelona, Judges Award for their excellent conservation research achieved through collaboration and community and also engagement. The floor is now yours, Winte.
Hi everyone, Mingalawa is from Myanmar. Okay, my name is Winter, as Cindy introduced. So first of all, I would like to thank the society to share this opportunity about my very little experience as a researcher, trainer, and conservation practitioner from my experience in Myanmar. Today is about my story of opportunities, growth, and challenges in Myanmar. Yes, I am one of the co-founder of the Myanmar Coastal Conservation Lab, and then it is a youth-led grassroots group. We base at Point Me Design Plus Training, and it is a social innovation lab which apply design thinking approach to education and research in various fields, including conservation in Myanmar. And as well as I'm working with Modoma project and Helvetus Myanmar, which is the project the mainly supporting or funding the work with that MCCL is implementing right now. So Modoma is a unique intertidal systems with a turbid, shallow body of water, which is situated east of the Irrawaddy Delta and north of the Myanmar archipelago. So it's intertidal methods are one of the largest in the world, as well as it holds species of conservation concern, including the marine mammals. But prior to 2018, there was no surveys or any scientific knowledge related to marine mammals in the Gulf of Mogama. So it started with a fisherman confirming to my mentor at the time, Tarawidi, that the animals they sighted in Chilika Lagoon are also in the Gulf of Mogama in their exchange visit to India. A month later, the porpoise stranded in one of the village in GOM, as in the photo. So like the photo raised our speculation and excitement that there may be some creatures dwelling in the muddy water of the Gulf, which is actually only about two hours bumpy drive from my home. But we've never heard or think of their existence anytime before. So why not? So we just, so it makes us to introduce local ecological knowledge of marine mammals in the Gulf of Mogama. So during the late 2018, we visited villages and did the surveys and responded, described the presence of at least the Irrawaddy dolphins and finless porpoises. Likely they can extend up to the river upstream to the Gulf. And then, so based on the response, so we started our boat survey, studying in late 2018. So results from, so it's finally lead to the boat survey. And then I believe that by the time we are the only active marine mammals scientific study in the coastal region of Myanmar. And the efforts consisted of junior state boat survey of Changzong Township in Mon State, alongside with interviews in villages in Changzong and other neighboring township of Pound. We only started of junior state survey because the systematic line transect survey efforts were not were planned, but we could not be carried out due to the complications with procuring a research vessel, the limited window of suitable weather and water conditions, and limited staff time due to other obligations as well. So this is what our boat surveys look like. So you can see we are just like in a wooden boat with some minimum tools such as binoculars, 1 or 2 GPS, and just one camera to capture the mammals. And then we are still using the circuit discs that my colleague Alnaiso made for us to check the turbidity of the water. And we have to hire the depth sounder from Marine Science Department at Malaysia University. Nonetheless, we confirmed that there are 3, oh my gosh. Nonetheless, we are confirmed that there are at least 3 species. So you can see that like the first picture of like this floating rubber-like creature called Indo-Pacific finless porpoise, and like which is appear like in our third in our third day of the second attempted boat survey. Then our sighting confirmed like another 2 species, the Edu dolphins and Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins in the area. Except for my mentor, so all of the people on the boat haven't seen dolphins in the water before. So when we encounter for the first time, I can't describe the moment. It's such a great combination of joy, emotions, different emotions of care, satisfaction, and I really enjoy seeing that, like feeling that moment. And every time I'm rewinding back to that time, I feel the same, and it's so amazing. And the research continues, and then we kind of observe that there are like we observe the presence of woody dolphins frequently feeding near fishing gears, setback nets, and also we recorded a lot of reports on bycatch of finless porpoises and woody dolphins and setback nets as well as drift nets. As well as from the local ecological knowledge in the use in RPA, we noticed that there were consumptions of porpoise and dolphins meat, especially from the bycatch and bycatch animals, and also there are widespread reported declines of sedations along the Gulf of the Modoma from the experience of the villagers within the past over the past 10 years. And so this is about the research that we've done so far, and then we still have critical knowledge gaps. So we still have to know the population abundance of these 3 species, as well as the distribution of the 3 species in the area. And we have to do so far for like what are the annual rate of bycatch, as well as what are the avenues for the bycatch mitigations with the communities. So this is the research that we've done, and then where we are right now. So I could represent that this is the learning curve of the activities that we've done so far. So by the time we were not trained scientists or ecologists, we started the journey cluelessly with limited resources, but massive supports from my mentor Tara and other friends in the region. So we started learn by doing and figure out our passions and grow where we are now. And as a group of young researchers who have 0 experience in marine mammals, we started our journey from 0. And like with connections from Tara, we met other marine mammal scientists and experts in the regions and took their supportive hands to stand where we are. Working closely with Tara and receiving her mentorship is incredible. And then because of how like we can achieve this kind of opportunities. But also it is such a privilege that Dr. Louisa visited our site and we started our first transect survey with her. And then we had a chance to travel to Kuching, Malaysia to have the experience of transect survey with Cindy Sarawak Dolphin project. These are like all variable experience for us to grow. And also with Longs, who will be the panelists today, guideline, we're now collecting stranding information via Facebook, and our team are now in the planning of emergency stranding responses, training to departments and communities as we inspire the work of Max and colleagues from Thailand. So these, all the experience and all the inspirations lead to where we are now. So this is such a hopeful situation, but one thing's really hopeful. We stopped the effort by the beginning of 2020 due to the spread of academic in the country. Then on the 1st of February, the same day, I'm gonna start my first day of full-time conservation job at Harvard Myanmar. I woke up in horror with no internet, no phone connection, and even no electricity. And then we realized that our democratically elected members of the country's ruling party were deposed by the military and then vested power in a autocracy. So under the ruling of military, we are not sure where we will when they will allow us to with all these conditions will allow us to do these efforts again. Yet we are really hopeful in this situation of despair. So this is kind of the story of researchers in marine mammals in Myanmar. And we just started with this phrase. So it says like, start where you are and use what you have and do what you can. So this is how we started. And it is really grateful for this, the opportunity to grow our potential to chase this conservation road as my career as well. This is such a catchy and inspiring phrase to say, but considering the situation in Myanmar, this might be out of mine or our survivors' bias, because it is not for everyone to have this opportunity of growth or conservation as career, especially in Myanmar. We could start because of the fact that we have the opportunity, especially we met Tara or we met other resources person, and we discovered the purpose, trending, and of course our values and passions for conservations. We're able to use what we have because we have financial access to do expensive surveys or fieldworks, and did what we could, as we have a lot of inspirations in the region, as well as genuine supports our systems or society that we already have. But I mean, it is not for all the people or all the young people who are interested in Myanmar right now. So for use in the country, we have very slight resources to grow, very limited opportunities or accessibility to start, and sparse representations to be inspired that we could do. We can start. We can do it. And being under a dictatorship ruling for several decades, the institutions which are important to support resources are faded, as well as human resources are. Sadly, we are now under that ruling again. In addition, by the time we open up the war is just for themselves who develop those systems, not for us who thriving to be a catalyst towards the change. So let's talk about science. For example, in order to grow, you have to assess the knowledge, but all these knowledges are not easily accessible because they can be expensive, at least for people whose income are under $4 in Myanmar. The knowledge systems are alienating the people if you were unable to speak or proficient or able to understand the space as the universal language that they are applying to widespread the knowledge of the science. For example, if I want to enroll myself in an international academic institution, not only I must prove that I have enough intellect to perceive those knowledges, but also I have to prove that I am proficient in English or other English by taking like exams to prove that I can understand or I can speak the language that they are used to share the knowledge. Also, as the technology is leading the societal development, we are even farther away from to perceive those resources. So there's just some struggle we are facing as people from developing countries. In addition, we also have very limited platforms, networks, or societies tailored for the people with different interests. Although I am very lucky that I can accessible to this networks of resources person as well as resources. In this case, if you are not resourceful or good enough, the opportunities are not meant to be yours. Even if the opportunities are out there, you're not confident enough to reach out to these activities or to these opportunities or to grab those chances. Most importantly, especially in the country, in my country, we lack inspiration and we lack representations as a scientist who works on marine science or even in conservation. So this lacks motivation as we lack those kind of representations. So I mean, it could be at least in the fields of conservation. I think this is why we started Myanmar Coastal Conservation Lab at Mobley. So our struggles, so we are still struggling and stay figuring out as young researchers, trainers, and conservation enthusiasts with limited resources. And then we initiated the youth-based group in our hometown for young inquisitive minds who are interested or want to explore about conservation. Here we started with 3, and now we're growing. We developed paid internship programs to youths and university students. And now some of these interns are our colleagues and still working together as a team. So we've been rooted learning opportunities for conservation and use in our cycle is getting bigger. Some of our teams are being participating in the international programs and as well as receiving more local recognition as a group active in conservation. And so this situation led us feel firmer and to dream about having inclusive, diverse society, aiming to find innovative and collaborative conservation solutions through research and working together with people or communities. So in order to wrap up this talk, I would like to wrap up with my friend's quote through a very serious conversation with him. Like he said that great ideas and passions are found around the world. So no matter what, where it is found, it should be supported and allowed to shine. Yeah, I think this is very right. And then we are just individuals working what we can. And that's the shine we want to bring to our community to believe in themselves and have optimism so that everyone have a chance to shine with their own color and or identity. So I think this is why we are now. And then thank you very much for your time. Yes, thank you. And Jesu de Mare.
Thank you, Winte. It was a really pleasant experience hosting you and also Yin Yin in Sarawak back in 2019. And to see how far you guys have gone since then, and to know that when you won the Stephen Leatherwood Award, I was very, very proud. So good job to you and also to your team. Right, so now we will, you're welcome. We will go to the third speaker, Dr. Louisa Penampelam. She is not just someone that I respect, she's also someone I'm very, very privileged to call a friend. Okay, and her talk will be on it will be titled, It Can Be Done on a Shoestring Budget, a Malaysian marmam research and conservation story. Now, Louisa is the co-founder and executive director of the Mariset Research Organization, a grassroots NGO focused on the research and conservation of marine mammals and their habitats in her native Malaysia. Louisa is a Pew Marine Fellow and also Asia Co-Coordinator for the IUCN Cetacean and Sirenian Specialist Group. Louisa is also the Diversity Chair for the SMM 2022 conference in Florida, USA. The floor is yours, Louisa.
Thank you so much. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Cindy, for that very generous introduction. I also want to quickly just say thank you to the Society as well as specifically to Eric Archer for the invitation to speak today to share my story and that of my team working here in Malaysia. So yes, my talk is called Can Be Done on a Shoestring Budget, and this is our story. Okay, so first of all, I just, I can't go on without giving a shout out to my fellow CMAM family, the Network of Southeast Asia and Asian Marine Mammal Researchers and Conservationists. This was us in Barcelona in 2019. My story is not unique in the sense that we all work on shoestrings. You've heard from Winte, you've heard from Jom. There's so many parallels. You'll hear from me again, and you'll see the similarities. So I just want to say, kudos to all of us who work on shoestring budgets. So a little bit about Malaysia. Malaysia is divided into two parts, Peninsular Malaysia and East Malaysia. I am from Peninsular Malaysia. I was born and raised around the Klang Valley region, which is within vicinity of the capital of Kuala Lumpur, and East Malaysia, or otherwise known as Malaysian Borneo, which is where Cindy is from and where she does a lot of her fantastic work as well. You'll see in the three red boxes are I just wanted to highlight, those are the three main areas where we do our research work. Two sites on cetaceans on the west coast of Peninsular Malaysia, and one site on dugongs on the east coast of Peninsular Malaysia. So a little bit about Malaysia. We are a biodiverse country. We are ranked 12th most, I think, mega biodiverse country in the world, if you're only counting terrestrial biodiversity. So we're known for, really some old growth rainforests. Of course, a lot of it is diminishing. We are also known for amazing coral reefs, seagrass meadows, very productive mangroves and mudflats, which host shorebirds and otters and fireflies. And we are a maritime nation with an extensive coastline. Now, despite the fact that we are so biodiverse and we have all this beautiful coastline, actually, the information, the general awareness about marine mammals in our country is still generally quite low. And I'll speak a little bit more about this in a while. So, so our story begins first with dreams and doubts, I want to call it. So this is myself with Firul, one of my best friends and also co-founder of Marset with me. We both had very different childhood journeys to get to this point of meeting each other and talk about marine mammals in Malaysia, but we both had childhood dreams of working with marine mammals. And when we met each other on account of first applying for the same job, when we first returned from overseas, we found that we had a shared vision for marine mammal research and conservation in Malaysia. And just as Jom had mentioned just now about how a lot of people over there in her country view marine mammal science as not being, actual science, or it's just child's play. It's sort of like dolphin watching. We have had our share of dealing with, similar comments and perceptions. I've literally been told to go and do proper science and keep this dolphin watching stuff as a hobby. But I'm glad we found each other and talked about, what can we do for Malaysia in terms of marine mammals, because there was so little that we know. How can we start understanding what the issues are if we don't know, what the issues are? How can we do anything for conservation if we don't know what the issues are? So we started Marset. Lots of people thought we were crazy because how were we gonna fund ourselves, sustain ourselves? Many people thought we would go, we would close shop within 6 months. A lot of people said, why don't you just join larger organizations? But we stuck to, our mission, and we decided to just go for it with not much money in our pockets or our banks. We decided to register ourselves as an organization and go from there. And today, nearly 10 years on, we have a small team, but an amazing team of dedicated personnel who all bring different strengths and charisma to our team and our work, and I'm very proud of them. So I just have to put this photograph up. Unfortunately, we're all never in the same place all at once, so that's why you've got like a piecemeal group photo here. So anyway, moving on to the work that we do, I think as Jom has mentioned, as Winty has mentioned, there's so many challenges that come with doing marine mammal research and conservation in this region. In Malaysia, the problem actually also begins with perceptions. What do I mean by that? We have been asked so many times, even up till today, whether there are actually whales and dolphins in Malaysia. Where are you pulling my leg? And sometimes when they ask me if I'm pulling their leg, I almost think, are they trying to joke with me? So there's just It's improved a lot, of course, over the last 10 years, but by and large, there's still a lot of people who just think that marine mammals in Malaysia are either passing through, they are lost, or they're just migrating and they don't actually belong here. So we've had to do a lot to sort of change that perception just on the ground. Then our issue is sort of magnified by the fact that there's always confusion between, are marine mammals a mammal or a fish? And why is this an issue here? So in our national language, Bahasa Malaysia, dolphins are known as ikan lumba-lumba, and whales are known as ikan paus. So the word ikan itself actually means fish in Bahasa Malaysia. And of course, people generally think that they are just like fish because of the shape of their body. They live all their lives in the sea. These cetaceans, they have a dorsal fin. So there's that common perception that it's just a fish. Why are we so worried about it? There'll always be fish in the sea. So again, when we started our work, we really had to try and really get into basics to just fix these misconceptions and wrong perceptions about what a marine mammal or a cetacean in our case is. And then, till today, we get a lot of, because of this lack of awareness that remains till today, there's still a lot of mistaken identity type of information that goes out in the media. This is an article on the left of a finless porpoise somewhere in Penang Island. It was a stranding from 2009. And you can see that it was labeled as a dugong. On the right, we have an actual dugong carcass that we dealt with some years ago. So people seem to know a little bit more about dugongs, but some cetaceans, particularly the finless porpoise, they get mistaken. And sometimes now with social media, things go viral. So sometimes people post things on the internet and it goes viral. That dolphins were seen off this coast. It's the first time, and it's people get excited, but then from that excitement, and it goes viral, a lot of misinformation comes about, and we often have to try and find a way to rectify the issue, and try to put the correct information out there. So then going to the field, when we know so little, all across the country, we know so little about cetaceans, about dugongs, we don't have much information. I always sometimes get carried away and sort of get envious of, other research projects elsewhere in the world that are using a lot of high-tech stuff, and they're so advanced in all the things that they know about marine mammals. And here we don't have, the means to be at that level. But what we've also realized that it's important to go back to basics. When you don't have anything, you don't have much information, you don't have much resources, it's important to begin by asking the fundamental questions first. So for us at Maraset, we established currently 3 research projects, 4 actually. We added a new one just before the pandemic, but I'll talk about the 3 main ones that have been running for quite a long time. And we established the Langkawi Dolphin Project, the Matang Dolphin Project, as well as Dugong Research and Conservation Project across the 3 sites since 2010. And was really first to study and understand what's out there, how many are there, how are they using their habitat, how are they interacting with human activities, what are people's perceptions of them, of conservation, so that we could use all this information to figure out what are the threats and how do we try and find solutions for these issues. So of course, in the early days, especially, we did a lot of interviews, surveys, because, well, this is a very easy and low cost method just to try and find out from fishermen and people who are out at sea often, where things are, have they been caught in nets before, are there seasonality, etc. And of course, just like you saw in the previous 2 presentations, we don't work off any fancy vessel. Often we either use a fisherman's boat, or we use a tour boat that's just a fiberglass boat with a roof on it. We also come with just very basic binoculars, our camera, our most prized possessions really, a handheld GPS, handheld depth sounder, to collect the data that we need to collect. So what do we typically work with, or in the last 10 years, we have worked mainly with Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins. We have worked with Irrawaddy dolphins, finless porpoises, Indo-Pacific finless porpoises, which are one of my favorites. This is one of the new species that we're trying to study, slightly more offshore. Again, we have never really conducted any in-depth research on large whales, large baleen whales in the country. So this is quite an exciting new phase that we're embarking on. And of course, dugongs, which I will not be focusing at all on dugongs today, given the time, but I just thought I'd mention that we also work with dugongs. So with our approach of doing cost research, what have we learned? And I'll just pick a few highlights of what we know today about these coastal cetaceans that we work with. We have managed to use photo identification, take photographs of the dorsal fins of these animals as a means of sort of tagging them non-invasively to study their movements and to study how many there are, how human activities might be impacting them based on the scarring patterns, and to see who's become a mother, who remains not a mother. And over the years, we have, this is Langkawi, one of our main sites, for example. We've been able to use photo identification to determine that Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins, the dots that you see in this deep magenta, they do move between Langkawi and the mainland, which is about 25 kilometers apart. You can see on the map, the orange dots, for example, show Irrawaddy dolphins, which remain along the mainland coast and don't move over to Langkawi. And what we've also learned is that the very elusive finless porpoise loves occurring around this area, and it is what we feel one of the best places to have your best chances to see this very elusive species. We've discovered that in our site, which in Langkawi, which very much borders with Satun province in southern Thailand, hosts occasional superpods of animals. What are superpods? We define them as any groups of 80 or more animals, and usually this species, they occur in much smaller groups of 5, 10, at most 35. But it's been very exciting to see that in our site, somehow they come together every so often, and they form these nursery groups that travel, I think, like safety in numbers. So we're still trying to understand what's going on, but it's just really exciting to see that we have these superpods that form up north, which we do not see in our other field site 200 kilometers south of Langkawi. In our another site in Matang, where research has been led by my student Vivian, we have also been able to document the distribution and the abundance of the 3 coastal species that occur in the area. And you can see that there's quite an obvious separation of how these species separate out in their habitat. Humpback dolphins are found much closer to the estuaries. Irrawaddy dolphins occupy a wider coastal area, and in this area, finless porpoises occur at least 5 kilometers from shore. So quite different from what we see around Langkawi, the other site. Since 2016, we've been able to begin new studies on understanding the social structure of humpback dolphins in Langkawi. And this is my student Sandra. She's currently working on this. So again, using a very low cost method, photo ID, which is of course very common in the marine mammal science world, as a means of determining what is the social structure. And what we found, this is in Matang, in the other site. For example, Susa chinensis form rather fluid fission-fusion societies with not very strong committed bonds between individuals. And since 2018, we've worked very hard to try and fundraise for the work that we do, because we always want to expand, because the more we know, the more questions we have. And so when we have more questions, we have to find ways to try and answer them. So we found that acoustic methodology is really a good complementary method to the visual observation method that most of us undertake, because so much of what happens with dolphins happens underwater and we can't see it visually. So since 2018, we've been very fortunate to be able to start acoustic study where we're trying to understand the impacts of human activities and vessel noise on how dolphins are behaving acoustically. And all this is so that we can figure out what are the threats and how can we mitigate them locally. Just other fun things that we've observed over the years, through our very low-cost survey techniques and methods is things like herding and mating behavior in Irrawaddy dolphins that are otherwise very evasive on most days. We've been also fortunate to observe the same in humpback dolphins, and we've been able to observe how humpback dolphins feed on catfish. So for a long time, we were finding these floating catfish heads, which we would collect and bring on the boat to measure and to figure out how the dolphins are choosing to eat these catfish. So these catfish have somehow developed a way to eat just the body and leave this head with its very sharp serrated dorsal and pectoral spines behind. So we've been very fortunate to be able to observe how they do it. First they stun the catfish and then they come from behind and chomp on the body. And a lot of times the catfish head, you can see here, leaves behind its swim bladder, and that's what allows the head to keep floating despite it having this very hard and bony plate on its head. So it's very, very, very exciting every time we find a catfish head. We've also been able to observe them feeding on squid. Same thing with finless porpoises. We've learned that sometimes before you see the finless porpoise, you actually see squid ink first. And this is why one of the things that we've been able to observe in our very makeshift laboratory outdoors is by looking at stomach content samples. And what we found, for example, in Langkawi, is that humpback dolphins predominantly like eating fish and finless porpoises like eating cephalopods. And that's how we think that they can coexist in a habitat that's, their distribution very much overlaps, yes. We've also found through the years that, of course, marine debris is an issue. We've seen dolphins swimming through seas of trash. We've had one that was stuck with this, what we think was an engine fan belt. Thankfully, after 2 years, we saw it again without this obstruction on its body. We've also seen some really resilient dolphins that we call our resilient mamas, dolphins who are moms with young babies, but you can see how disfigured their fins are. So they must have undergone some pretty serious trauma, but have survived and gone on to reproduce, and some more than once. So these are the sort of things that we do through our monitoring. We started out not knowing what to expect, not knowing what to see, but just through the years, by just keeping at it and just using whatever resources that we have had and opportunities that we had, we tried to uncover all sorts of things about their distribution, their diet, their behavior, and the threats. Through the work that we're doing as well, we now know, gill nets are a real issue, especially for humpback dolphins, as well as Irrawaddy dolphins in our site. But of course, they're also an issue for finless porpoises. And trawl nets are definitely one of an issue for finless porpoises and Irrawaddy dolphins in our site. So moving forward, actually, we've been trying to fundraise and figure out how can we raise funds to find low-cost bycatch mitigation solutions, using a combination of pingers, maybe onboard simple camera systems, and attaching acoustic recorders on the nets to try and figure out, how are these animals responding to these nets. Another thing that we like to do, because we think it's important, is to from time to time, we do online data mining just to see what's out there. Now with social media, lots of people tend to post things online when they see a sighting or a stranding. And through a lot of the data mining that we've done, we found that actually a lot of the records that we get are Indo-Pacific finless porpoises. And this is typically a species that many people like to overlook because they're not very exciting. They're less charismatic. They don't jump, they don't spin, they don't breach. But what we're finding is that actually there are a lot of people who do come across Finis porpoises stranded on the beach in these kinds of conditions. Of course, usually the public sees it, and then it's small and it's in this bad condition. They just leave it there, and it really doesn't sort of catch media attention. But through searching online, we can really see the frequency of this species showing up on the social media posts that people put up. Of course, there are other species as well that we monitor, and those are quite a number as well. But I just wanted to shine a bit of spotlight here on the finless porpoise. So, shifting gears from what we study to the situation on the ground with conservation willpower, political willpower, and how do we harness that here in Malaysia? I can tell you it's not easy, and this is a bit of a diagram showing where marine mammals sit on the national conservation agenda. It's very hard sometimes to get people to be excited or to want to care about marine mammal conservation, because at the top of the tier, mainly people care about human causes, naturally, because it's what we can relate to as human beings. So human causes, health, welfare, diseases, mental health, etc. And once we get past that layer, we have to compete with terrestrial causes, which of course are very important, but nonetheless, in terms of like trying to gain media attention, publicity, maybe for a marine cause or fundraising even, it's almost quite difficult to compete with the very charismatic tiger or elephants, tapirs, proboscis monkeys, and of course, the issue of deforestation. And of course, being on land, these things are a lot more visible than marine mammals that live all their lives in the sea. Once we get past that layer, we come to the marine realm. Marine mammals still have to compete for attention between coral reefs and sea turtles, in which these two subjects are a lot more established in terms of the efforts being conducted for research and conservation over the years. So by and large, marine mammal research conservation is still very much new in comparison to coral reefs and sea turtles. So we really sit at the bottom of this, like people's awareness, people's minds, and as well as national conservation agendas, national and local conservation priorities and agendas. Meantime, as you saw just now, all the issues that I've pointed out, but also we have things that keep happening, in the recent years. For example, in our site, there's been approval recently. Earlier this year, a huge project was announced that this 40 billion ringgit mixed development land reclamation project is going to take place, and it's going to take place somewhere within prime Finis porpoise habitat in our site. Of course, we wrote our letter of concern and we highlighted that the area is home to many Finis porpoises, and we've observed them feeding and foraging. But the point I want to make here is that how do we get people to care about this, from a marine life and marine mammal perspective, when they rank so low in conservation priority overall? However, there is hope, and I always like to refer to this paper, short note that was published by Chris Parsons some years ago, where he says, so you want to be a Jedi? What do you do? How do you advocate your findings for conservation? And what we've done is that we try to ensure that a lot of the work that we do, even if we don't have much resources, we try to ensure that we get it out to the people who need to hear it, people who are in decision-making positions, local communities, and general public, people who love the ocean, people who rely on it. And really, it's about communicating our science to a wide and appropriate audience. Through the work that we've done, we're really proud that those 3 sites that we've been working on since 2010 and the years that follow are now designated as IUCN Important Marine Mammal Areas. So this is the 2 sites that host the cetaceans, and then this is the other site that hosts the dugongs. Now, through our work as well, the area that we work in was proposed to become gazetted as a dugong sanctuary. Unfortunately, due to a change in government and other administrative changes, that has yet to come to reality. It is still pending gazette at the federal level. However, we continue to use IMAs as a tool, and of course, all the information that we have as a tool to push for better protection of these habitats. All marine mammals are protected by law in Malaysia. However, their habitats itself are largely not. So we're trying to use IMAs and whatever information that we have to push forward that we need to really keep marine mammals not at the back of our minds, but right in front of us. So again, last point that I want to sort of push through is that working on small budgets does not need to mean that we have small impacts. So what do I mean by that? We found that it's so important to translate our science into education. So we use many different ways to communicate our work to kids, to the general public. We try to make things as interactive as possible. We, where possible, we try to fundraise to do something different. So this is our Whales on the Wheels marine education mobile truck, which we ran in 2019 before, pandemic and everything. And the idea behind it was to bring marine mammals to people because we want more people to know about it. So we can have this mobile truck moving around. And I was actually inspired by this, by a similar setup from the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito in California. So it had been a dream of mine for a few years to try and do this. So we finally managed to get a small grant to do it. And hopefully next year, when things start reopening up again around here, we can take our Whales on the Wheels on a nationwide tour, where it is our hope that we can bring marine mammals into more towns, into more urban areas, and into a few remote areas around the country, so that people can hear all about why mammals are important, why they are very much a fabric of our biodiversity in the country, and what we all can do to protect them. It's important for us to translate our science to local communities where we work. So we've done a lot of training workshops, ranging from stranding response to how to sample a dead marine mammal, how to deal with a live stranded marine mammal. And we've done this with vet students, hotel staff, fishers, tour operators, as well as nature guides. One of the things that we do place a lot of importance and emphasis on is to ensure that our science is translated into policy and local management plans. So we've contributed to management plans, development plans, working plans, biodiversity policy, just ensuring that all the information that we've derived from our research is fed into these recommendations that are drawn up in these documents, and that hopefully they would be meted out in the future. So I just want to kind of wrap up by saying that even though you're on a shoestring budget, lots of things can be done. One of the things is that believe in the power of volunteers. Volunteers have helped us do so much of the work that we have done over the years. They have been a support system for us. One of the things I want to point out is, for example, sometimes we live in Kuala Lumpur in the city, and an animal strands far from us, and it is volunteers who have helped with collecting very important samples from a stinky carcass that they really don't need to deal with. So believe in the power of volunteers. Of course, believe in the power of social media, to use it to spread the word, to raise awareness, to get people to report sightings and strandings, because get them to be your eyes on the water, to share information about the animals that you've studied. It is important as well to build local science and conservation leadership. At Marasat, we like to recognize individual strengths and interests, and we try to grow those strengths and interests to be able to develop the work that we do further and ensure that there's continuity. So I just want to share a few examples. Here is Vivian. This was her in 2011. She was just in her final year of her university degree, and she came and volunteered with us on our project. And she then went on and embarked doing a PhD under myself and another colleague. This is her in Barcelona in 2019. She won one of the, Best Poster Presentation Award, and presenting at several conferences. And today, just earlier this year, she's finally graduated with a PhD, and she's a fully fledged marine mammal scientist, and I'm really so proud of that. And the other example here I want to give is Joanne. This is her in 2012. Again, she joined us in her final year of university as a volunteer. And today she's worked with us for the last 8 years, I think, where she handles all our outreach and education programs, developing new ways to reach out the message of marine mammal science and conservation to the public out there, helping us develop our alternative livelihood programs with island women folk. So, one of the things we're really proud of is that in recognizing individual strengths and interests and in giving people, youth especially, the chance to volunteer and to participate, just as how John had mentioned earlier about volunteering, we've got 15% of our volunteers who've gone on to pursue a career in marine science and or conservation. And that's something that we're really, really happy about. It's sort of like we did something good in this world. As John mentioned just now, fundraise, innovatively. So we try to fundraise with a difference as well. We want to fundraise for ourselves and our work, but we also want to support the local livelihoods of the communities in the areas where we work with. We want to preserve traditional heritage in our country and to share products that have a related story linked to the marine mammals that we study, as well as the local culture. In 2018, we started these trips we call Edu Tours, because again, we want to try and bring our world of marine mammal science into the realms of just regular everyday people who don't work in this field. So we started these trips where we take people out and we share with them all that we know about dolphins in our sites and about the natural landscape. And I think people have found it really enriching to get a small glimpse of what a marine mammal scientist would do out on a boat, out on a day at sea. And of course, seeing dolphins always makes everybody happy. So finally, I just want to conclude by summing up everything by saying that research and conservation can be done on a shoestring. And here's how. Dream big, have an ambition, and go for it. Don't give in to the negative comments. Don't give in to the naysayers. Do your research, focus on the basic, important basics first. It's so important to find out what's there, how many are there, where they are distributed, what are the threats, what are the issues. So do research, but start slow. It's okay to be low tech. It's okay to be low cost. Build up your portfolio. So when we started, it was really hard because nobody knew who we are, who's Mariset. So keep working hard to build up your portfolio, keep knocking on doors, introduce yourself, introduce your work to the people that matter, be it local communities, government agencies, offer to collaborate with them and to work hand in hand with them. So be prepared to work really, really hard. Gather volunteers because, volunteers are so invaluable. I can't stress how important they are. Build a team, as we have done, and a team with different strengths who can bring different things to the organization. Always translate your science into education programs to train the community, translate your science to train communities. Fundraise smartly and innovatively, never forget to do that. Of course, use the power of social media to spread the good message of the work that you're doing and the overall objectives that you want to achieve, which is conservation. And always use your science to translate them into policy instruments to ensure that they live within the policy instruments that you can follow up with and use as tools to push forward conservation agendas. And of course, always keep your research going, innovate your efforts, develop the questions further and further, and believe that you will be able to make a positive impact and more. I think that if an organization like ours, who really started with nothing from dust, if we could have come this far, and we still have so much more further to go, I believe that everyone can do it, given the opportunity and the tenacity within yourself. So you might have seen this photograph appear earlier as well in Jom's presentation. It's a sign of how central this Southeast Asian marine mammal network of marine mammal researchers and conservationists is to all of us in this region. I just want to say that another important thing that has helped us, through a lot of these challenges working in this region is find a group of people who challenge and inspire you, spend a lot of time with them, and it will change your life. I think we can do a lot of the things that we do is because we have so much generous support from everyone within this network and from the wider network who never fail to share methods, insights, opinions, and just to provide the way forward of how we should do something if we're stuck. So so grateful for them. And with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Louisa, for that very, very interesting talk. So to go to the next speaker now, okay, it is by Wirapong Lawat Prasit, or Mac. So Mac is a marine life veterinarian who is currently conducting his PhD at the University of Georgia, USA. Mac was one of the founding veterinary staff of the National Thailand Strandings Program. After working on one of the most comprehensive strandings programs in Asia, Mac is furthering his skill set and is working on advanced molecular diagnosis development in sea turtles and marine mammals. The floor is yours, Mac.
I think I mute myself. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone, Asian folks, and good morning for myself and American folks and some European countries. So my name is Mac, as Cindy mentioned earlier. I'm doing my PhD now. I was a former veterinarian at Department of Marine and Coastal Resources back in Thailand. And today I'm going to be sharing about how to turn the stranding information to the better resources for cetacean conservation in the budget and resource limited environment. So just to give you a little recap about the stranding network in Asia, we've been doing a pretty good job, and we've been doing this for about 20-ish years right now. So I believe that every country has their own stranding network, at least informal one and also formal one. Some just established like Myanmar, and some country has been doing this for a long time like the Philippines. But in Thailand, we run everything by under government place called Department of Marine and Coastal Resources Research Center. So, and we are very grateful that we have the great partnership with the university who come and support us for rehabilitation in live stranding cases. And also we have the support from the Royal Thai Navy to help us doing the stranding network training in the local community. So as you can see here in the pictures, we do dead stranding response, we do live stranding response, and we also cooperate with other terrestrial land who own the island authority, and then they help us doing the report, a stranding report. And we, in Thailand, we established the stranding network between 2012 and 2013. So as you can see here in the map showing you the red spot represent each individual stranding. So we got pretty good amount of stranding report back in 2012, but after we established the stranding network, we got a lot more the coverage of the stranding report. And as you can see here in the graph as well, we got tremendously increased number of stranding report. And this is not because we got more mortality of them, but in fact, we understand more about the baseline of the stranding and how the mortality should look like. And this will help us to monitor the unusual mortality event. So this can happen with the great stranding network. So some countries are still working on that, keep working, but you need to have the baseline information in order to capture some abnormality event. And what we train them, we just train them for the basic species identification, as Louisa mentioned earlier, to distinguish between fish, shark, and also cetacean, and also make sure that they don't pour the water into the blowhole by giving them the basic physiological knowledge, stuff like that. And also we train our local communities, including fishermen, the local villagers, tourists, lifeguard for the human, and also just some nearby governors and university to help gathering more facilities and also people who can help us in the stranding field. And we're not doing only the lecture base, we also do the practice, including the pool practice for live stranding, and also some basic necropsy and samples collection in the field as well. So what we usually get from the stranding, we usually get very superficial information, which is great. I mean, we need to have those information first before moving along to the further step. But we usually got species, age, sex, size, etc. And this is not really helping us to answer an actual cause of death because it can give us a very brief diagnosis like bycatch, which is very obvious to be seen, and also natural causes, which is very vague category. And also we have the huge portion of unknown cases. And this is what we don't want to see because this happened because we rely everything on gross necropsy a lot. And it just provides us only 10% of diagnosis. The rest of them, which is 90%, require further investigation to complete an understanding an actual cause of death, like infectious diseases, metabolic diseases, congenital defects, traumatic injury, and also toxicosis. And none of this can be seen by just gross necropsy. And to achieve the better diagnosis, I know I talk very fast because I don't have enough time to talk about everything, but I hope it could help everyone. So to achieve the better diagnosis, we need to have, in the veterinary medicine world, we need to have the differential diagnosis first. And this is what we can gain from the normal necropsy. We see the abnormal lungs, we see abnormal kidney from necropsy on the field site. We rule in all possibilities, what can happen, come across with the disease list, and then finding the proper tools to help confirm those disease lists, what is real, what is not real. And this is just to narrowing the steps down for the time and cost effective sake. And then we have tentative diagnosis to group all disease possibility together. And then we use a tool already. For example, we see abnormal lungs. So we suspect natural causes like infectious diseases, but we don't know what kind of disease going on. So we use histopathology by just cut the tissues before the and also doing histopathology. So we see in cellular level what's going on. We see abnormality happen in the large respiratory tract and also some alveoli. So we suspect viral pneumonia, for example. And in wildlife and marine mammal world, we usually stop at this step because we have such a huge knowledge gap about what we understand about an actual disease in marine mammals. So most of the time we stop in here and give the very brief conclusion, viral pneumonia, which is sometimes not enough because we can't do anything with that anyway, viral and what can we do? So we want to have the definitive diagnosis to have the actual, to know the actual cause of death and understand sometime the disease mechanism and find a solution for the mitigation plan or whatever that we can help the rest of them in the live population. So this step maybe could be done by ancillary tests after histopathology like PCR or doing immunohistochemistry to confirm, oh, after we got viral pneumonia suspected, it caused by, for example, Dolphin Mobley virus. So what we can do with that, so we do the research to make an active and passive surveillance in the live population, routine monitoring, and then can do some hypothesis-driven research. And we can, let's say, for example, we can say, oh, they have 15 base mutation and it can cause species transmission from dolphin to other animal on land. And for example, in Hawaii, they do all of this surveillance system and they found the Mobley virus could cause disease in Hawaiian monk seal, which is very endangered species. So they introduced the vaccination program back in that population. And all of this can be done by doing a perfect systematic diagnosis like this. And this is something that very, commonly talked about, but in fact, this has happened a lot by loss and by having a loss and incomplete, the stranding and necropsy report, because most of the time we do necropsy by ourselves, we drive by ourselves, we have only 3 people helping us to cut the animal open, bury it, record everything by ourselves. So some of the data are missing and not complete afterwards. And also most of the time when you can finish the case, you can finish the case sometime within a week, sometime within a month. So information need to go back and be filled. And this is a very old style necropsy form that Thai people used previously. And as you can see here, it was built for morphological study, which is important for morphology and species identification, but for veterinary medicine and disease investigation, it's not enough. We need more than that. We need gross description, not just abnormal kidney or abnormal lung, but we need a well-described statement such as multiple yellow nodules were found on the dark red firm small kidney with thick irregular surface and renal capsule. So then we can assume that, oh, gross diagnosis could be nephritis, which is inflammation of kidney or chronic kidney disease, renal congestion. And this help pathologists when they read the histo section have more accurate interpretation. And also sampling labeling is one other thing that has occurred a lot. Sometimes you run your accession number differently from what you label on your baggie, so it keep swapping and keep mismatch. So you need to throw away those samples for no reason. So keep an eye on that. And also some people do a lot of record in a paper-based system, but nowadays we usually put everything on Excel, which is great, but it's not the greatest way. Sometimes we use Google Drive, which is we can share that to everyone. But at University of Georgia, we use the veterinary some data categorizing system called VetView that we can put everything together, including ancillary tests, in additional tests like such as bacteriology, virology, and also histopathology report, and put everything together. So when you put the accession number, everything just show up at the same time. The sample archive. So when you work with this, I know it's hard to work in a rural area and budget limited area, but you need to have fresh tissue samples, at least serum sample, formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissue like FFP block, and also alcohol fixed tissue in order to complete our possibilities. So the fresh tissue sample we can use for bacterial and fungal culture. We can do PCR in that. We can do toxicology, metagenomics, and transcriptomic work to see, oh, during infection, what protein increase, stuff like that. Or we can use serum for herd immunity detection, and also disease detection as well as a comparative test. But sometimes for the new veterinarian or people who just started working in this field, they usually put the whole tube into the refrigerator, and when it freezes and it passes freeze-thaw process, the red blood cell on the bottom part will be lyse and then interfere the antibody detection. Stuff like it could happen. For the formalin fixed tissue, we usually put everything in the formalin jar like this, which is good, but it's going to cause the cross-link protein and then inhibit the detection of whatever pathogens that you want to detect. So I would encourage you guys to put everything from the formalin jar into the paraffin embedded block like this in order to have more stable nucleic acid to be detected in the future. And also people like to keep things like this, but in pathological system, we usually keep everything in the archive like this, because believe me, when you do your marine mammal investigation, you cannot complete everything within a day. You need at least weeks or months to complete it. So once you found something in histopathology, a week or a month after that, you need to see, oh, I suspect infectious disease, need to go back to see what kind of infectious disease and run more tests. And if you don't do the systematic archive system like this, you will not be able to go back to do anything at all. And for one more thing, this is the thing that we commonly make a mistake. To do the fresh tissue storage, we usually keep everything under -20, which is not enough at all. I realized it when I do my PhD that RNA is very easy to be degraded. So for the safest way to do, put everything under -80 Celsius, but I know it's hard for some area that have the very limited budget. So nowadays we have developed the new techniques to detect all infectious disease in formalin fixed paraffin embedded tissue or FFP block as well, but it needs some certain lab can do that. And also what I have explained you so far to achieve the final process, which is the research. But we still struggling of doing research in marine mammal world because we have constraint in sample condition. It gets very rotten. We have restricted budget to do the pathogen keep mutating, and then we cannot keep tracking or cannot use the same taste that developed already. So those situations can happen. Let's say, for example, this is a very famous infectious disease in marine mammal world, Mobley virus, that caused a severe stranding from all over the world in naive cetacean population. And just to give you a little bit recap about Mobley virus, this virus can cause disease in human as measles disease, in ruminant, rinopes, and PPRV, and also even in dogs and cats causing canine feline Mobley virus, or faucet Mobley virus in seal population, and also cetacean Mobley virus. And we understand this, we usually detect this using PCR by detecting, as you can see here in the yellow arrow, we're detecting just a small part of viral genome to answer, oh, this is positive for this virus, for example. But nowadays, we want to know more than that. We want to know how much, where does it come from, and how they circulate in the ocean, what population have and don't have it, what strain that they have. Can it mutate itself and infect back to other population, causing spillover disease, or even cross-species transmission to other population? Can be from cetacean back to the land animal. So my laboratory developed this technique called pan-Mobley virus semi-targeted sequencing to be able to detect all variants of Mobley virus using one primer and get almost all information, almost entire genome. And this is to answer the strain variation or help for budget limited area to do research. So this could be done by having a clear objective, what you want to do. So lastly, to do cetacean conservation, we need to have a research partnership. I learned that because I was from the government part, and government always feels like, oh, we have the authority to do this. We should do research by ourselves because we have the authority to do. We don't need other people to get involved. This is not true. You need to have a research partnership because even work in stranding organization, it's very hard to hire a new person, such as one veterinarian might take at least 5 years to get hired. So research partnership from the well-established institute would help you doing this as well. Organized data and sample archive is very important because, as I said earlier, you need to go back to your archiving system to see what's going on. Let's say, for example, a month has passed and you just see, oh, we have a lot of stranding than usual. Look at the Excel data file, and then, oh, we need to look back to what's going on individually, but you lost all that paper or the data. So this happened a lot, not just Asian country, but all around the world. So we need to have everything be kept systematically and well organized. Stranding network is very important, as I mentioned earlier. We got almost double 200 more cases after we do a nice stranding network, and we do this 12 times per year from all over the country, and we've been doing this for a decade. So it's pretty good result doing that. And so we need to have a clear objectives in order to understand and set up what kind of samples that you want, what storage condition that you need to do. Otherwise, you keep wasting your sample because, oh, they say it's not that your sample is not qualified for doing this. Your sample is not good enough to understand disease mechanism, stuff like this. So yeah, just build up your own research partnership and then reveal what kind of samples that you want to get and have proper storage system to do that. And as Louisa mentioned earlier, or John or Winte, we need to gather all information, not just know it within our organization, but also produce it and then implement it into the real world, such as we know what kind of disease that we have, how much strains variation going on, how much mutation, and what's the possibility that can jump to the other animal, and then announce it to the world and make the world know, okay, so we need to be concerned about this, or even doing the vaccination program in the future, for example. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mac, for your very short and very sweet talk. It's very interesting to know what you're doing previously is also related to what you're doing now. Okay, so we're slightly over the time limit, but I just hope that all of you can stick around for our panel talk. Okay, we will have two panelists. One is Long Vu. He is a trained ecologist and conservationist who started studying marine mammals in 2012. Currently, his work focuses on narrowing information gaps in the knowledge of marine mammals of Vietnam to better inform conservation and also management. Our second panelist is Wei Chang Yang, or also known as Jack. Okay, he is the head of the department and Graduate Institute of Veterinary Medicine at the National Taiwan University. His expertise lies in the pathogen and disease investigation, noise-related stress evaluation, and diagnostic tool development for marine mammal research. Now, the floor is yours to answer the questions that have been posed by people on the Q&A. And also for anyone else who have any other questions, please don't be shy to drop it in the anonymous Google Doc.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. So I would like to answer this question. So the question is, under each challenge, why do you continue to do citation conservation work? I will answer this question from my personal experience. And I hope that my answer will somewhat similar to what the other panelists here think. So to me, the most important reason that keep me continue this kind of work is maybe our strong passion and love for marine mammal in general. So we just love doing what we are doing. That's it. Simple like that. So as you heard from our talk today, most of us grow up and live in the biodiversity rich countries. So we have been exposed to many other charismatic animals like monkey, tiger, but somehow all of us here end up falling in love with marine mammal. You can call it destiny or something, I don't know, but it just happened. The second important reason that I can think of is we just proud and we just being inspired by this wonderful network of marine mammal researchers in Southeast Asia. You probably heard all the talk today, and you just see that Louisa, Winte, John, Mark, all of them are very inspiring, and because of their inspiration, many of us here in Southeast Asia just keep going and going. Sometimes I consider it like a competition, so I want to be as good as them, at least near that level, something like that. It's just simple like we just want to belong to this wonderful network. The third important reason that I can think of is actually we marine mammal scientists, we are just a very stubborn people. We refuse to give up. So as you learned by all the talk today, there is a ton of challenge that we are facing. There's so many difficulty, but we still maintain our heart and our belief that our work is important. And by doing our work, we actually help marine mammal, help the conservation, and somehow help nature and even human. So that three reasons that I can think of that explain why we keep going forward in the field of study. I hope that other panelists agree with me. So please add more. Tell us what you're thinking.
That is a good one. A healthy competition is definitely something that I feel amongst us as well, although we might be submitting a proposal to the same grants, but then when any one of us receives it, we're also very happy that our colleagues and our friends received it. So that's a very good one, a healthy competition, I believe, Long. So the next question is for Jack.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Okay. So the next question is how to get the government into the conservation activities, right?
Yep.
Yeah, in Taiwan, I had to say that we tried very hard to put the government in front of the camera, because we know they need it and they love it in front of the camera, and so the people's power can push them to kind of invest more budget and more effort on the conservation activities. But I don't know what how to do that in other countries. But in Taiwan, we can easily find the reporters or journalists or other media to interview the governmental officers, especially the top officers. You know, one time we even put the president into the rescue pool. You know, the president. So that'll be very helpful. But what I say, I had to say that because it's maybe some drawback, like we need to use the budget according to their wishes. So that's drawbacks. Yeah, here's my very simple answer, very brief, but we can share the experience by text later if you have any more questions.
Okay, thank you, Jack. So another question, probably too long. Okay, I'm having a look at the Q&A right now. Hold on. Now, this was a question from the Google Doc. Many of you have attended the 2018 IMA workshop in Kota Kinabalu, Sabah. Can you tell me if that experience has affected your subsequent work, as well as place-based marine mammal conservation in your region?
The short answer is yes, and I thought I'm very proud to participate in that workshop in Kota Kinabalu, and in the end we promote to have two IMA in Vietnam. And recently, I and Luisa are working on a dugong project in one of the IMA, which is the Con Đảo National Park. And I think the fact that Con Đảo National Park has been recognized as the important area for marine mammal by IUCN had contributed a large part in the successful of our proposal. Of course, because of COVID-19 and other traveling constraints, we haven't started many of our proposed activity up to this moment. But we have a high hope that our project will bring in new data for IMA and maybe the dugong distribution in Vietnam and maybe hopefully in Southeast Asia region. The other side, other IMA side in Vietnam that have been recognized from the mentioned workshop is the Kiên Giang and Kep IMA. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to return to that side since the workshop, but I hope that the Cambodia team published several papers that relate to their project. And okay, I forgot to mention that the Kiên Giang and Kep is the transboundary IMA. So I and the Cambodian team working together to study marine mammal in this area, and I hope that the Cambodian team have published several papers and results which strongly fortify what we already know about the importance of that area for marine mammal conservation.
Okay, thank you, Long. Now, another question for you, Jack. This also came from our Google Doc. Now,
Yes.
how to get a balance between the subsistence of the local people and not disturbing to the cetacean if whale and dolphin watching is increased?
Yeah, I think the best solution is to have the regulation, even not in law, but we still need some local agreement, like with the company, with the local fishermen, and of course we can put them put their commitment on the media, so everyone will know, oh, you will not make money, but the dolphin will be the dolphin watching will not be regulated. Yeah. So the local agreement or even national agreement will be very essential. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. So before we end the webinar for the night, Long, can you just quickly tell us how is your typical day at work, or if you have any joke that you can share with us?
My typical day at work. So I think I just start my regular day of work as anyone here. Start going to my office, turn on my computer, and look at the schedule, what I have to do today, what deadline that I have, what deadline that already passed, and who chasing me for that deadline. Maybe Louisa, maybe Lindsay. And then I start, working on what left from yesterday. And whenever I have a free time, I think about new idea, how I can integrate my work with conservation, how I can, do exactly what Louisa showed in the paper, like how, as a scientist, I consider how to step out of my ivory tower and make my science useful for conservation. And that's it. The rest is I just have a new baby. So, and my office is actually, for now, I have to work at home, and I have to frequently feed my daughter, change her diaper, and play with her a little bit. So it's a happy distraction.
Ah, congrats on your baby. She's really, really cute.
Thank you.
How about you, Jack? Do you want to share your 3-meter whale joke that you shared earlier? Or do you have any other anecdotes about your working situation?
I just want to say today's presentations are so make me almost cry. Yeah, because I can feel the enthusiasm and the efforts, just like we did in Taiwan, because we don't have much resources, just like you. So let's get together to keep working for the cetaceans and other marine mammals.
That's very sweet. Well, thank you everyone, to all the speakers and also to the panelists, and also to Lindsay for helping me backstage here. Before we end today's talk, may I ask everyone to switch on your video so we can take a picture together. Let me see if I can do it. Sorry about that. Hold on, yeah. I can't seem to take picture of the participants. but it's okay. We'll just take one picture of the panelists. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I hope all of you enjoyed the talk. For the questions that have not been answered, we will answer it and post it on our social media. This webinar will also be uploaded onto the SMM's Facebook and also YouTube page after it has been cleaned up. So I again thank you for all your cooperation. Sorry that we ran slightly longer than we intended. I hope that you'll have a great evening, great day ahead, and take care wherever you are. Bye.
Bye.